Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the May 20th Raw review. Now, before I start, I'm going to say this. I've seen a few YouTubers already on their thoughts of Extreme Rules, and they said it was mediocre at best. And I do agree with them, even though I did give the show a B rating. The reason I gave it a B rating was the things that needed to be done, and were done. We got the Shield getting those belts. We got Triple H losing to Brock Lesnar. And even though the Extreme Rules Last Man Standing match with John Cena and with Ryback was mediocre, there was no real clear winner, I still gave it a B because they needed to do what needed to be done. They couldn't let Ryback lose, but they didn't want Cena to win. As much as this a chicken shit way out, it was for them, and I wouldn't have done it. I would have let Ryback just win clean. But since they didn't want to do it, that's the way they did it. This show, I say, is an introduction to the next pay-per-view. The way this show was structured was all setting up for the next pay-per-view or Payback. Now, the beginning of the show, what do we get? We get a Ryback driving in an ambulance, climbing on top of an ambulance. And then, what do we get? Not a great promo segment from him. He did what he needed to do, yes. He made sure he got his point across that he wants an ambulance match with John Cena. Now, is that bad or good? It's going to depend on what they're going to do for the next 3 to 4 weeks. I think it's 3 weeks into the next pay-per-view. But the point of the matter is this. John Cena was not there. So the question is, will they keep him off TV long enough to get Ryback more heel heat? Because the way he was trying to get himself over was not good. I've said this before and I say it again. He needs a mouthpiece. He just didn't sound very good to me personally. He did the job he needed to do and he tried to put himself over with some heel heat. But he felt like to me he was rambling a little bit. Just a little bit. He felt like he was rambling. It just didn't feel good to me personally. Later in the night when the Zack Ryder versus Cody Rhodes match went down and Cody wins by disaster kick, he decides to come down, beat up already a disaster kick Zack Ryder, not really much of a challenge, and then froze his ass into the ambulance that was parked outside. Then the ambulance was basically going off. Was that the right thing to do? It would be the right thing to do if this was a regular chicken shit heel. This was a heel who was supposed to be a monster, and now he's been turned into a chicken shit heel. I would have personally liked him to go out when someone was going to be ready for the match, go out and see them, and then beat the shit out of them, and then throw them into the ambulance. That would have been more powerful to me than him beating up on someone who's already been beaten. This is something we've seen so many times before by all the chicken shit heels that ever been in the WWE who has done well, it's very rare to see an ambulance match, but you know what I mean. They always go after someone who's gotten their asses whooped already. I mean, it's obvious. But I would have liked to see a Ryback show his true dominance by beating the shit out of somebody who was getting ready for a match and then throw him into the ambulance. So I'm going to move on from there. The first match of the night was Fandango and Wade Barrett and a Miz and Chris Jericho. And Wade Barrett got new music. All Hail the King. The opening of it. He liked his music. You could see him getting into it. Yeah, I like my music, baby. But it didn't make much of a difference because he got beat by the Figure 4, by the Miz. And halfway through the match, he had a partner. But at the end, we saw a dance. The entire thing was to get Fandango over. The entire thing was only to see Fandango barely dance with a Summer Rae who can barely dance herself. It was entertaining to a point. It wasn't bad. I mean, I didn't expect Fandango to just beat the hell out of a Chris Jericho a little bit and a little bit of a Miz. Then tags in a Wade Barrett, who had an attitude with him anyway, and then go outside and then pose and dance. I didn't expect it. Is that great for him? Maybe, because the crowd were a bit into it. And at the end, what do we get? We got two things. One, we got a Fandango getting run off by a Miz and a Chris Jericho through the crowd. And then again, we get a Summer Rae interest in a Chris Jericho. A little bit of a cha-cha, a little bit of a dance, and a little bit of a closeness where you look like a Summer Rae is going to be kissing a Chris Jericho until the hand of a Chris Jericho goes up in her face and says, "Talk to the hand, baby." This shows you that the Chris Jericho is still the sexy beast, baby. Had to throw it in. Is it worth it? Chris Jericho finally got a win at a pay-per-view. Let him strut and do a Space Mountain strut, showing his Space Mountain to a Summer Rae. Now, I had to say that too, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, what can we say next? We see a Vickie Guerrero sighting. And we see a Vickie Guerrero promoting the WWE app, saying that Jack Swagger, who basically lost, dirty loss, he should have won the match. No matter if you agree with the man or not, if you like him or not, he should have won the match. That instant replay shit, this is how upset I was. Last night I was upset when I saw Extreme Rules and I made my review. If you saw how upset and turned off I was fucking turned off that they used this stupid instant replay. They did it at least once before, but on the Titantron, if I remember correctly. Someone looking at it. If I'm wrong, fine. You can tell me below. I'm probably wrong. But if I'm not wrong, this is stupid shit. And JBL said it best. Mike Chioda went over his bounds. But you know what? Seeing this stupid WWE app shit thrusted down my throat is really angering me. I don't mind a Vickie Guerrero saying, "Excuse me," trying to look cute. Eddie liked her. You see earlier pictures of her, she looked damn hot. So whatever she's got left over is still pretty good. But right now, hearing the WWE app coming from those sweet lips of Eddie Guerrero, former wife, a nice round, somewhat round ass of a Vickie Guerrero, pissed the shit off of me. Hearing that a trucker Jack Swagger has to go up against who the people choose, a Khali, a Orton, and a R-Truth. I was totally turned off by this. Then we see Orton, which I can understand. I think they're still doing the Raw in St. Louis. So the crowd was still somewhat hot for him. The match itself, it wasn't too bad for Jack Swagger. Not good matches from him. But at least a Randy Orton did some decent work with him. You know Randy Orton can do work. He can work well in the ring. And even though he doesn't usually like to put people over, if he wants to make himself look good, he's going to force that guy to make him look good because he ain't going to look like shit. And in the end, we got a Randy Orton win. Baby oil for all, baby. I can say this. It's good to see Randy Orton winning if it's still in his hometown. You don't usually get that. I think they did this because Randy Orton, after his last run-in with the wellness program, began to behave himself and act like the professional he's supposed to act. Which, if he has been, I commend you, Randy Orton. I'm glad you've been acting appropriately. So, that's that. The next thing that really pissed me off is Sheamus versus Titus O'Neil. I had to do that one. It is so damn funny. But I can tell you this. Titus O'Neil, I saw some of the post-show and some of the post-show and the pre-show. Titus does have the type of voice and the type of charisma and presence where he can do good, but I felt he was a little lacking. I didn't say that in my review because I didn't feel like it was necessary. because I wasn't too interested in the pre-show that much at all until the match. And then I couldn't see much of the match anyway, which pissed me off. But he's an untapped potential. And it's just sad to see he's not being tapped yet. But then seeing a Sheamus come out, and then what really made me mad was the after effect of the Extreme Rules and seeing a Mark Henry iced up, taped up a little bit, walks out the door and says, "I'm going home," to one of the trainers. Just pissed the fuck out of me. They had a perfect opportunity with a Mark Henry to push him to give some interest in SmackDown, and they have dropped his ass because they basically buried him by Sheamus. They could have kept this feud up if they did not, and I repeat this, they did not let Sheamus make Mark Henry job so damn much. In other words, he bro-kicked his ass too much. They made him bro-kick him so much, there was no interest anymore. And with Titus O'Neil, he did a decent showing. He looked pretty decent until he got bro-kicked in the face as well. Did I think Titus had a chance? No! Do I think they're going to be using Sheamus into the title picture eventually? Yes. And I actually had a weird thought of a new opponent for Sheamus. And this leads me into the ADR segment. The ADR versus Vickie Langston. And Biggie wins a bit dirty, which I don't know why they needed him to have assistance from AJ. Haven't we ever seen any heel scratch the eyes of a face before? It's not something that's not allowed in the WWE. You tell me below when they started saying it's illegal and you would be disqualified to scratch someone in the eyes to get a win. Well, I don't understand why she did that. Really? To distract the ref? You serious? So what do we get? We get a scratch in the eyes, and a Vickie Langston does his move on a ADR and he wins. In a sense, he actually win clean, because that isn't something that's uncommon. But what does this mean? I don't know exactly what's going on with Vickie Langston. I actually had this weird thought that maybe they're trying to promote a Vickie Langston a little bit for two reasons. One, they gotta let him do something while Dolph is still out because of a concussion. That's one thing that's obvious. Vickie Langston is subbing for a Dolph. I feel sorry for him because they didn't do nothing with him, and then he gets a concussion on top of that. That sucks. But that looks like what they're doing with him. But there's another thought that crossed my mind. Could they be trying to build Biggie along with that to go up against Sheamus later? Because Sheamus really has no one to go up against now. If he's being built back into the title scene, who is he going up against? Is it going to be Dolph Ziggler? That would be the only person you could possibly think he can go up against. But until Dolph comes there, maybe a Vickie Langston will be next. It'll be obvious. Even if it's not for the title, he's got to have someone to go up against. So that's what I thought. Next, the six-man tag. Basically a repeat about a week or so ago of Kofi and... Well, not a week or so. You know, basically SmackDown. Kofi and Hell No versus The Shield. It was basically a repeat. The Shield win. And it is Roman Reigns who gets the win again, but this time over Kane. I'm sorry I made the mistake on my Extreme Rules. I thought it was Daniel Bryan. I thought it was Kane. Not sorry, Daniel Bryan. It was Daniel Bryan who did job. In this case now, it's Kane who jobbed. I'm sorry. Being dyslexic, sometimes we do tend to get a little backwards in our words. And with me, I do it a lot. So I'm very sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. But what does this mean? Well, the promo segment before the match wasn't bad at all. It was direct and it was necessary. Do I think the Shield is going to go very far? I don't know yet. I'm going to probably do a debate of the week on those guys again. Because I think I did do a debate of the week partially on them. So I may do another one and do it solely about them. So I'm going to move on to the next thing. The Paulie Dangerously's new guy. And this leads also into the final match that I'm going to be talking about. Just in case I'm not, make sure I didn't forget anything. Oh yeah, I forgot. Before I do the Paulie segment, I might as well get the Divas thing over with. Divas match. Layla, who I do still love very much. She's the second in line next to Naomi. Next to my lovely Naomi. Next to my darling Naomi that I would die for. Against AJ. Again, AJ uses that, I believe she's now calling it the Black Widow, they're calling it now. Was it interesting? But in the end, what do we get? No interest. And I feel sorry for Layla because she should have had a feud with a Caitlyn turning heel and it didn't happen. Now going back to Paulie. Paulie introduces McGillicuddy now as Curtis Axel. For me personally, I think it's 2 years too late. I mean, it's good they're doing it. Don't get me wrong. Even if he's not a very good talent, at least you can see he's a third generation talent and they should have done this earlier. Doing this should have been done earlier, WWE. Ladies and gentlemen, they should have did this earlier with him. Back in 2009, 2010 or 2011, they should have pushed him as this. And then work with his character. Doing this now, his character development just feels so lacking. This should have been done 2 or 3 years ago, honestly, for me personally. It was interesting, though, to see the game God, as the Off the Rope Show Central calls their highest power in the WWE. I was surprised he came out. I was surprised that he wants a match. I wasn't surprised he smacked Axel in the face. And Axel fell like a bitch. So what do we get? We got a very interesting match. A cliffhanger, if you will. This entire match was not pivoting about Curtis Axel getting over. It did help him to a point. But this was about Triple H wondering if he could continue wrestling. Because this is what happened. We already know supposedly he got smashed in, well, he did get smashed, as they say, in the jaw with the sledgehammer. Halfway through the match, what do we get? We see him begin to show scenes of weirdness. By the time he knocks the crap out of Axel outside and then gets a good whack in the face, what do we get? We get Triple H actually sitting down, asking for water, dizzy as fuck, trying to get back into the ring, could not, and then go sit down again. And then eventually, and the promo segment before this entire match ever happened, hearing him say, if you want to keep your job, Doc, don't say shit, let me in that ring. Doc was at the side of him. The Doc said it's over. And what do we see at the very end? Most of the people in the arena start chanting Triple H's name. And then you see him crawling nearly on his belly, trying to get up and possibly get back into the ring. I give this a B- rating. It wasn't a great show, but this was more about introducing things. Like introducing new music, introducing a new star, introducing a cliffhanger, and introducing a new match for Payback. That's what I'm giving it. It wasn't a great show, but it was an introduction show. So I hope you enjoyed the Zane's View. Subscribe and comment to my channel, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope you enjoy this. I'm hoping to do the debate of the week on the Shield soon. I got some stuff to do, but hopefully I'll be able to get it by this week. If not, it'll be next week. You guys have a good day.